Ever get the feeling like no matter how much is enough, it's never quite, well, enough?
I knew what you mean.
I was thinking about this, particularly in the context of businesses. How much profit is actually enough for a company to truly thrive?
Hmm.
I came across this thought-provoking article, What is Enough? By Arup Bhattacharjee.
Oh, yeah.
He's a self-described profit engineer.
I like that.
Right. And his perspective really got me thinking. So in this deep dive, let's unpack Bhattacharjee's perspective on this whole idea of enough in the business world. Yeah. Like, do companies really need to constantly strive for maximizing profits and accumulating massive reserves? Or is there a point where they can say, hey, we've got enough to operate, innovate, and make a positive impact?
I'm in. Let's dive in.
All right, so Bhattacharjee kicks off the article by talking about his own experience, right? He was in this high-growth, high-pressure environment. And it sounds like no matter how well the company performed, it was never enough.
Yeah.
Always this push for more, more, more.
It's like that old saying, keeping up with the Joneses, but on a corporate scale.
Exactly. Like, even when exceeding targets and expectations, there was always that message from top profits are lower than last quarter, profits aren't as high as targeted, the industry is doing better than us. It's like the goalposts were constantly shifting. Have you seen this in your work?
Oh, absolutely. This relentless pursuit of profit growth, it's practically woven into the fabric of, well, a lot of organizations. It's like this underlying current that just keeps pushing everyone forward.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a way, it makes sense. Competition is fierce. Capitalism, by its nature, encourages this striving for more.
Right, survival of the fittest and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But while competition is essential for innovation and efficiency, it can also create this kind of, I don't know, almost an unhealthy obsession with maximizing profits at all costs?
But Charji uses this really striking analogy to illustrate this point. He talks about trees and animals in nature. They take what they need to survive and thrive, but they don't keep striving for more, more, more.
Right.
They reach a kind of natural equilibrium. So the question he poses is, can companies learn something from this model of sustainable growth?
Yeah.
Can they find that sweet spot of enough?
It's a powerful analogy, isn't it? Makes you think, huh? And actually, it gets to the heart of what Bhattacharjee is suggesting. Like, what if, instead of this endless pursuit of profit maximization, companies focused on achieving a state of enough, having sufficient resources to operate comfortably, invest in their employees, and make a positive impact without necessarily needing to amass billions upon billions in reserve?
So how do you actually define enough for a company, though? I mean, is there like a magic number?
Well, Bhattacharjee proposes an interesting benchmark. He suggests that having a reserve equivalent to 2 years of operational costs could be a reasonable starting point.
2 years.
Yeah. Think about it, 2 years of breathing room. That gives a company the flexibility to, invest in research and development. It lets them weather unexpected economic downturns. And importantly, it allows them to prioritize the well-being of their employees, all without constantly feeling the pressure to squeeze every last penny out of every operation.
I mean, 2 years does sound pretty radical compared to what we see with some companies today, right? Some of these giants are sitting on mountains of cash.
hmm
What are the broader implications of companies embracing this enough philosophy?
Well, for starters, imagine the impact on company culture. Less stress, less burnout, maybe even more room for creativity and innovation.
Makes sense.
Employees could focus on, actually creating value, not just chasing arbitrary profit
Oh,
targets.
right, right.
And then there's the potential societal impact. Imagine if more companies prioritize sustainability, ethical practices, maybe even giving back to their communities, because they weren't solely fixated on squeezing out those extra few percentage points of profit.
Okay, but here's the thing. Don't companies need massive reserves to stay competitive, especially in today's, cutthroat global market?
It's a valid concern.
I mean, they need resources to innovate, expand, acquire other companies, all that jazz.
Right, but Bhattacharjee's argument isn't about abandoning competition altogether. It's about questioning whether having billions upon billions in reserve actually translates to a significant competitive advantage, especially when a smaller, more strategically managed reserve could still provide that crucial 2-year buffer.
Mm.
Like, yeah, you need resources to invest and grow, but does every company need to be a financial behemoth? Or could some companies achieve just as much, maybe even more, by focusing on efficiency, agility, and a more balanced approach to growth?
So it's not about shying away from competition. It's about like redefining what it means to be a successful competitor.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, that shift in mindset could lead to a more sustainable, more equitable, and ultimately more fulfilling way of doing business.
Okay, but let's be realistic. Investors are a huge part of this equation, and they tend to prioritize, well, profit. Wouldn't they push back against this enough philosophy?
No doubt about it, that's a real challenge. Investors often have short-term horizons. They want to see those quarterly returns, those stock prices climbing, convincing them to embrace a long-term sustainable approach. Even if it means slightly lower profits in the short run, that's a tough sell.
Hmm.
But Bhattacharjie's argument pushes us to consider a broader question, like how are we measuring success not just for businesses, but for our society as a whole?
Yeah.
If a few million in reserve is enough for a company to survive, to innovate, to provide good jobs, does it really need to hoard billions? And if it doesn't, what could those resources be used for instead? Could they be reinvested in communities? Could they support social causes? Could they help address some of the pressing challenges facing our world?
So ultimately, it boils down to our values, right? What do we prioritize as a society? Unfettered profit maximization, or a more balanced approach that considers the well-being of people and the planet? That's a big question, and it's one that Bhattacharjee leaves us wrestling with.
It is a big question, and one that I don't think has an easy answer. But, even just asking the question, even just starting the conversation, that's a step in the right direction.
It really makes you think.
It does. If a few million in reserve is enough for a company to truly thrive, what does that mean for how we define success, both individually and collectively? It's something worth pondering.
It really is food for thought.
Absolutely.
So there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into Arup Bhattacharjee's What is Enough. It's a powerful exploration of the tension between the need for companies to be profitable and the potential downsides of an unchecked focus on profit maximization. Maybe, just maybe, there's a middle ground, a place where companies can achieve enough to thrive and make a positive impact without sacrificing their competitive edge.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for having me.